Welcome to another episode of Think Out Loud. Today we have another special guest. She is a grafter, a hard worker, and one of the most organised people I ever met. You should see the colour coordination from post-it notes to pens. Senior strategist at Digital Clarity, Sophie Burrows. Welcome.
Hi, Rachel. Hi. What an intro.
Well, I like to big it up and say it how it is as well. So
yeah, I do love my colour coordination.
Absolutely. I think the latest one is one of the fairly garish spreadsheets for budget analysis.
It is, yeah. It is a bit garish to some, but to me it is fully organised, and that's key, I think. Of course.
So we have worked together for about 6 years or so now, and one of the last years being remotely, which has been very odd. Because we used to go on a lot of road trips together and things like that to go and see clients. So it's been a bit of a weird year, hasn't it?
It definitely has. Yeah, it's been different, but it's been good.
Exactly, it's been good. So we've worked together pretty closely for a good few years now, and I thought it would be good for all the listeners to kind of get to know Sophie a little bit better. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely.
So let's do a bit of a quick fire round. They're going to be a bit obscure, but bear with me.
Okay, I'm nervous.
You can wear only one colour of clothing for the rest of your life. What is that colour and why?
Oh my goodness, what a question. One colour. Oh, it's going to have to be a neutral colour because, I was going to say neutral colour so that it goes with other things. But if I'm only wearing one colour, it doesn't matter, does it? So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go with pink, because my first thought was black because it's very kind of understated. It can be dressed up or down, but it's also a bit boring. So yeah, I'm going pink because it's bright, it's bold, it's colourful, and yeah, I love it.
And it's DC.
Exactly, yeah, it's on brand.
I had pink. My money was on pink. You there? So for a minute I thought, whoa, hold on, she's throwing a curveball.
Okay, next question. So what is it that annoys you the most about other people?
What annoys me most about other people? Wow, what a question. I mean, if I'm thinking of specific people, I probably could reel off lots of things, but I think in general...
Let's keep it non-offensive.
Yeah.
As general people.
As general, yeah, definitely don't want to offend anyone. I think... Oh my goodness, what a question. I guess it would be people that are always negative. I think that... life has its ups and downs, and everyone has bad days, and being negative is something that we probably all do if we're being totally honest. But I think there are some people that are only look on the negative side of life, and I think that's not the best way to live. So that would be my pet peeve, I think.
It's a good one. I would totally agree with you. I think that people can always hang on the negatives, and even just adding a bit of positive into the way that you look at things can change how you approach tasks or how you approach work, or even just like within your life in general. So I think that's a really good point. So final question in our pop quiz is, if you could be any character, film, TV show, who would it be?
Oh, that is another great question. And again, I could probably, if I had time to think, I could reel off loads. But what I am going to go with is the character from one of my favourite films, The Devil Wears Prada. My character would be Andy from that. So she's the one who's like a bit of an outsider, joins this like Vogue inspired fashion magazine, and she's she comes in and absolutely nails her job and just, you know, lives the best life, basically. Obviously, there are ups and downs with it, as with anything, but it's just such a good film, and I just love her as a character. So that would be it.
That's fantastic. Off the cuff, I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
The questions that you have not been asked before, these are on the spot for a purpose, to, you know, put a bit of pressure on. So that's great. Thank you, Sophie. Great answers. And I think we've all learned a lot. So let's get into some business questions, if I may. So
you may, yes.
Been at the forefront of some amazing client strategies. We've worked on many of those together, and particularly within the B2B, business to business space. What would you say that the biggest mistake is that B2B companies make when it comes to digital marketing?
Oh, that's a good one. So I think, yeah, definitely over the last 6 years, we've, as you say, we've worked together on a lot of different accounts and different clients, a lot of which have been B2B. And I think one of the most common mistakes that I've seen is where there's no kind of long-term strategy in place. You know, obviously everybody wants leads and sales and customers and you know, to grow that kind of profit and customer base, but they're not running their marketing, they're just running their marketing with that end goal as the kind of focus. So all of their ads are, you know, pushing for conversion, for sales and for inquiries. Whereas I think what is really important and what is kind of often missed is that wider strategy of, you know, raising the awareness, building up that brand profile, building the brand as a whole, and, you know, getting your message out as to why somebody should buy from you or why they should even engage with you. You know, if you get a sales call from I don't know, Sky Broadband or something like that, you're not necessarily, you know, you may know who they are, but you're not necessarily going to just go and purchase right away. You want to have a look at, you know, what they've got to offer. You want to have a look at what the competition are offering, that sort of thing. So I think that would be the biggest mistake, I think, where they don't think about the wider strategy and think of, you know, if customers are doing their due diligence online, these B2B businesses need to be at the forefront of that, so that when, you know, potential customers are doing searches, they are visible and can be found online.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think also your example of signing up to someone like Sky, I mean, Sky is a huge brand that everyone has heard of. And therefore you already have a perception of what you're going to get with that particular package, and you're still going to consider the purchase, look at the other options, maybe figure out what you're getting for your money. So when you're talking about B2B brands that maybe are lesser known brands, I think it's even more important, isn't it, to establish who you are and what it is that you have to offer that's different to maybe some of the competitors that are the bigger businesses within your space.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, I mean, Sky as the example, like you say, people are aware of Sky. They are a huge brand, yet people won't convert on their first visit to the site, or, you know, whatever. Like I said, they're going to look around and do their kind of research. So I think it's, you know, fair to say that with a much lesser known brand, that journey or that kind of sales cycle is potentially going to be much longer, because they're, you know, maybe learning about a B2B brand. They are learning about, you know, that specific brand's selling points and why they're different and what their kind of value proposition is. And so it's really important for brands to sell themselves without selling themselves. So, you know, telling their story, and also showing the face behind the brand as well, because I think another thing that many businesses probably do is they forget to kind of be a personal brand as well, because at the end of the day, people buy people.
It's a great point. I think one of the things that we sometimes discuss in the office is how big companies always try and be smaller, and small companies always try and be bigger, and it's kind of all, you're always trying to be the opposite of what you are. And actually, it probably pays to be quite open and honest sometimes, particularly if you're a smaller business. There is definitely value of working with smaller businesses that outweigh some of the bigger boys, and it depends what that client actually wants at the end of the day. And you're not going to be right for everyone, so it's about finding the businesses that are right for you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So we've seen many changes with search and social. Everything changes all the time. It's hard to keep up. I was just interviewing Alice Stapleton from Digital Clarity the other week on a podcast, and she was talking about how it was one of the challenges was to keep up to date, because everything's changing and everything in digital changes at light speed. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what do you think the biggest positive and the biggest negative is when it comes to change within our market?
Okay, so let's start with the positive, because like we said at the start, I don't like being too negative. So let's start with the positive. I think it is, and you rightly said, and Alice has rightly said as well, the industry is changing at lightning speed. But I think the positive of having these changes that are always coming is that there's always new things to test out, and there's always new things to try. So whether that's a new ad format on Google or something like that, it's a new way that you can maybe reach people as they're searching, or kind of maybe show a different side to the business. And I think that's what makes it so exciting, is because there are always these new changes and new things that are coming, and it's new ways to get your brand out there and test and see what works for you as a business.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think sometimes it's a bit daunting for businesses to try a new avenue, but it's something that can be so rewarding and give you back something that perhaps you're missing from some of the other channels. I think, although it's not a new channel, something like Microsoft Ads is often overlooked because there's not a huge amount of activity. There's kind of a limit as to how much exposure you can get, because it's a much smaller search engine than the likes of Google. But you can find little gems there, can't you, in regards to conversions. And I think that, you compare something like that as a new avenue to a business to use, to something like, I don't know, TikTok or Clubhouse or all the sort of buzz social channels at the moment. And I guess when you whittle it down, it comes down to the business and what you've tried and tested before. And it as you say, everything is changing regularly, and everything can be quite shiny and new. So I think it's a fair point that you make. I think just a tip for people listening is to make sure you know why you're using those channels, because it's very easy just to put some ads up on something because it is new, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just because there's a new platform or something doesn't mean you should instantly jump on it and start advertising. It's got to be right for the business. And not everything is going to be right for the business. And even if there's a channel you think, oh yeah, let's try it, it looks good, and it may not work, and that can be really kind of disheartening. But I think it's important to try these things if they are right for the business, because then you've tried it, you've got the data behind you, and I think that is really important. And I think, as you mentioned there, Microsoft. So my negative point would be the fact that no one really likes change, but you have to adapt. You have to be open to trying these new things to see, because you might be surprised by the results. They may work really well and better than what you've done previously. So one of the biggest changes, I think, probably a small change, but one of the biggest changes over the last years is the name change of Google AdWords to Google Ads and Bing to Microsoft, because it's a tiny thing, but I know myself, I still call it Bing, but as you said, Microsoft, Bing or Microsoft, whatever we call it, it may not be the right channel for everybody, and again, as you said, the search volume is particularly lower than it is on Google, but we have seen some really positive results because it's cheaper and because it's less competitive, and because, for some of our clients, particularly in the B2B space, it's been the right audience that are using Microsoft. So yeah, I think it's really important to try these things and be open to change, and to adapt.
I think that's a really good point. And also, were you impressed how I said Microsoft Ads and Bing?
I was.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's it. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Sophie, which is about finding your audience. And I think this is where B2B and B2C kind of are merging, because we're all consumers at the end of the day, but we're working within businesses. And therefore, we're having to make business decisions. And therefore, we may be on our certain platforms that we use for our own personal lives and our own social interactions. And therefore, there is a level of being aware that I may engage in business discussions, or at least see advertising for brands that may be relevant to me in those different environments. What it doesn't mean is that I'm going to go, I'm just messaging my mates on Facebook and I'm going to now jump across and go and purchase something from a B2B situation straight away. And I think that goes right back to your earlier point, which was people aren't just going to pick up the phone or purchase something immediately. It's very rare that will happen unless they have been nurtured down the route as to why they should actually buy.
Yeah, and I think what you said about B2B and B2C kind of blurring or merging, that's exactly right. I have LinkedIn open on my browser most of the day because from running adverts and things like that. But although I'm working for a business, I'm still a consumer. So I think LinkedIn especially is considered to be a very B2B focused channel, which it undoubtedly is, but at the same time, because I'm a consumer, there's a potential chance that I might see an ad for something that is more B2C focused than B2B, and that will have a kind of knock-on effect of me potentially going on to buy something if it's of something of relevance.
100%. I think there's been some really good points there, Sophie, that people can take away, a bit of thought-provoking information, and I think some good takeaways as well, little tips that people can look into. So really appreciate your time today. Hopefully the listeners have enjoyed what we've been discussing, and learned a little bit more about Sophie Burrows. So thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great.
Thanks, Sophie. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Another great guest and some useful topics discussed there today. So look forward to speaking to you next week on Think Out Loud.